Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Instrumental Breakthroughs, psychedelic origin stories of your favorite rock and roll superheroes. I am your host, Daniel Shankin, and this is a project of Mount Tam Psychedelic Integration. Tam Integration offers psychedelic integration and preparation coaching and educational events and the like, virtually all around the world. Before we start, I would like to thank Brian of Deadhead Land for hosting us and giving us this space, and Stephen of Livestream Remote for running the tech. I'm very happy to have my next guest, a musician that I have had the joy and honor to watch play many, many times at all times during the day, at brunch, late night, and in between. Let's just open our hearts and our minds and welcome Ross James. Thanks for being here. Is psychedelic origin stories of your favorite rock and roll superheroes. So I would love to just kind of jump right in, start at the beginning, and talk about some experiences that you might have had that may have influenced your music from an early age, an earlier age.
Psychedelic experiences?
Yeah, psychedelic or otherwise spiritually meaningful.
Yeah. I mean, it was just, music was just everything to me once I had a guitar in my hands. When I was like 9 is when I got my first guitar. And it kind of took over, and it was my artistic outlet. It was my spiritual outlet. It was, it was the way I would spend all of my time instead of, doing homework or other things I was supposed to be doing probably at that time. And I mean, I knew that was the path that I was on kind of from the moment I started playing. So it's always been a really, really important thing to me.
Right. And so then I'm curious how that might have changed when plant medicines or sacred science got thrown into the mix.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really dabble in psychedelics when I was younger. I remember like the first time I got stoned in high school or something. I was like 16, and I didn't really dig it the first time, and but I seem to remember like doing it again pretty close, like pretty shortly after the first time still, because I was curious or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, it made sense initially. It sort of paired with the creative process in a lot of ways. I mean, it helps you sometimes get rid of the ego kind of thing and just open up and let it flow through you a little bit more easily. And I mean, I definitely would use it when I would get stoned when I was like writing songs or something like that. And then later on, like trying psychedelics for the first time, it was sort of the same kind of thing, but just bigger, mm-hmm. I suppose, where a little scary maybe in the beginning, and then seeing how it could open you up even more in that creative way.
I like this dichotomy, this pairing that you're talking about. I don't like it, but it's useful.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's certainly truth to that. It's just about being in the right space for it, open to it. And then, I mean, the biggest thing for me too is like when it becomes a party or, like, I think it's easy to get wrapped up in it at the same time and lose sight of the power of it and kind of use it in the wrong way.
Right, because you're not, I think about you as a musician, and it's also kind of, it's it's clear that, you have your fingers in sort of like all areas of the music business. It's like, you're not just a musician, you're also a tech and a manager and a producer and all of these kinds of things that require kind of a strong left brain. Like they sort
Right.
of require kind of having your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, how does one make the time? That's almost a question. Is like, how do you make the time to sort of balance those left and right hemispheres?
Yeah. I I live for that kind of being able to do both creative and, left brain kind of stuff or whatever. So like, um, you know, I love that balance. And I don't think like the low points in my life have been where there hasn't been a balance of both. It's been too much of one or the other.
Mm,
And there have been those times with both, not just, overworked in like a 9 to 5 kind of job sense where it's where there are where it's almost just uh too much freedom, I suppose, or
mhm,
it's like too good to be true in a way, and it really is. uh
mhm.
so that kind of thing is important to me, being able to have the creative outlet, but also, I mean, I geek out on numbers too,
Right.
like,
Well, would you be comfortable fleshing out like an example of one of those things and like what you realized and how you course corrected?
well, yeah, I mean, there have been times in my life where, like, I had just like, I think about the worst job I ever had, and it was working for an AV company at the Sacramento Convention Center, and it
Hmm.
was it was just like, I had to wear a tie. I like I sat behind a desk and like made phone calls, and then I would sometimes like actually tech the stuff, and that was like the highlight of it. But it was like, it wasn't going anywhere, and it was just a total drag. It wasn't fun. There was no like fun in my job, and I'd never had that before or after, for that matter. And the way I course corrected, as you put it, is, I looked for every possible music option that there was, and um, it's actually what led me to. Uh, I was working some gig and looking at musician wanted ads, and there
Hmm.
was the ad that Phil's youngest son Brian had posted, and I answered that ad, and that's what led me to playing with Phil and Terrapin and all that kind of stuff. So that's, I never lost sight of what was my true purpose, the way I feel it,
Right.
and what meant the most to me. And
Hmm.
but I on the flip side of that, like, there have been like, I got pretty lost after a while, like, in that world. It's just like, you can, uh, just like certain friend circles, and too much of this psychedelic exploration, losing sight of reality, and
Hmm.
when there's no purpose behind it, and when it's like I said, just becoming a party or something like that, then, you know it's like a lot of the way I feel. Like, I haven't done psychedelics for a while, for a long time, and
Hmm.
I don't like, I and playing music, most of the time I've played music in the last year, I've been totally sober, which is a new thing for me. And I feel like higher than I've ever felt in a
Right.
way. Like, I mean, it's the way I think of it is kind of like, you've unlocked these doors, you've gone down these hallways. I don't need, that key anymore. I can sort of go through them on my own, which feels much more empowering, and more in control as well. So,
Right.
you know, course corrected both of those scenarios.
So I love that. So, this is kind of, I think, a key thing, this idea of literally key. We unlock those doors and then we can just go through them. Tell us about like one of those doors.
um, well, I mean, I've unlocked a lot of those doors with my friend Scott Law. Um,
Hmm.
him and I play music together in a group called Cosmic Twang, and he's been, you know, uh, I look up to him in a lot of ways, musically as a human being, and then he's been a bit of a Sherpa for me, I suppose, in a sense. He's taken me to some of the craziest places I've ever been. To Europe with this organization that we're both a big part of called IGE, which does these really great um, music trips, I suppose you could call them, to Europe once a year. We were supposed to just be getting back from Prague right now, but that's been moved to the next October.
Hmm.
But the Oregon Country Fair and just all these places. I think about being in Venice with him, and just sort of it's beyond something that you could dream up. Some of the scenarios that
Right.
I've been in with him, and those experiences are like fuel for the tank, and it lasts such a long time. Like I mean, there are certain songs that still I play them, and like every time I play Masterpiece, I'm like right back to this insanely beautiful palazzo in Venice, with
Seems appropriate.
yeah, totally, right. But it's I don't know, it's like these unimaginable things that, I think in a way aren't reachable without that thing that you get from what we're talking about. And that's not to say that you need to take psychedelics to achieve them, but sometimes I think it's easier to get your brain in the space to open up to those possibilities,
Hmm.
you know, doing that, or the sense of unity and connection that comes from it sometimes.
Okay,
That
so
sort of thing.
right, so there's some of the words I was looking for. The unity and the connection. And that does sound very exciting, though, to sort of get to travel around with Cosmic Twang and play places like Venice.
Yeah. I mean, it's been insane, and Barcelona and Lisbon, and I mean, we've gone to Kauai, just magical places that, you know, in in a in a space like that, geographically and consciously, it's so much easier to let go of the rest of the crap,
How
that
come?
well, there's no filters. You're just like you're like when you're on vacation and you're laying on the beach and you just like let go of everything.
Hmm.
It's like that in a musical sense or an artistic sense. I mean, it's just like it's easier to create, for me at least,
Hmm.
in those moments sometimes, you know.
Right. Yeah, that is super wonderful. Especially considering that a lot of us know you kind of from like one location, right? Like we know you
Right.
from like Terrapin.
You're
It's
right.
like,
Yeah,
and
totally.
so it's like you are so um, and I guess this kind of brings us back to that idea of balance, kind of that you're so sort of a part of that place from its inception, sort of, I think like you built the sound systems and things like that.
I I I helped put together equipment. Maybe I was not there were bigger minds behind designs of things.
Okay, got it.
Just to make it clear.
Yeah, but I mean, there's probably a couple of drops of your sweat still, like sort of like in between the knobs.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then to like think, and then it's sort of really nice to also think of you as sort of like being able to do this thing that's sort of from like this hometown thing, like all over the world.
Yeah, yeah. But you know, hometown thing. I think this thing is so much bigger than that to me. I mean, like as far as just the Grateful Dead thing, I grew up not really into that scene at all,
Hmm.
and it's all just such a like what it is at the heart of it, you
Hmm.
know, is a part of all of us. It's not a hometown thing to me. It's a universal human thing,
Okay.
and that's what's cool. Like we can show up. We play. Like most of the times when we go on these trips to Europe, it's with the group that we bring with us, which is about, at this point, it's grown to like 120 guests come on these trips with us, and we sort of just take over these cool, historic buildings and venues and all that kind of thing, and do private shows for this group. But there's been a time or two, but there's been a time or two where we've done, usually it's like one or two maybe events that are open to the public in these cities every trip. And I remember this time we played in this place in Venice, and we did all Grateful Dead tunes, and like everybody in the band was wearing tie-dyes, and it like in Venice, that's about as like uncool as you could possibly imagine, right? It's just like, there's no scene for that, and it's like it's not hip, it's not fashionable, anything. It was by the end of the first song, everybody in that place was like part of it, They didn't know the music, they didn't like have any connection to the scene, but what we were doing was so pure and real,
Right.
that it blew through all that and resonated with everybody there.
That's amazing. Yeah, I'm just interpreting, overlaying what I know about Venice onto your story. So, in one hand, right? So I'm aware that, yeah, you sort of found this music and started to enjoy it a little bit later. So it's almost like I'm kind of curious, you had this whole very strong musical background before, and then it sort of kind of ended up into the meat grinder of the Grateful Dead, and then has come out the other side. And this is another sort of kind of like medicine journey or initiation or something, or trip in and of itself. And I'm so kind of curious, like, how have you been transformed? Like, which parts of you like are, have remained authentically you? What has kind of transformed and evolved? And like, where does it take the music that you make yourself?
I think one of the coolest things about playing with Phil is his goal, what he wanted out of me and everybody that's ever played with him, for that matter, is nothing other than to just be your authentic self, And I think that it's certainly been an up and down thing for me, as far as like realizing that or being comfortable with that or whatever. But that's one of the things I'm appreciative and grateful of for Phil, is he just wanted us to, like, he doesn't want me to try to sound like this person or that person or whatever. He wants me to sound like me when I play with him. And that is so inspiring. I mean, that's everything, to create that environment is how you get the best out of people in anything, I think, And I mean, growing up, I liked a lot of like, when I was like younger, I liked a lot of sort of progressive rock. And then I got really into punk rock and country music and jazz and bluegrass. And in a way, like, to me, that makes more sense as an approach to playing the music of the Grateful Dead than to just be somebody who's listened to the Grateful Dead primarily. And that's where you're drawing your influence from. Because when you think about that band and the reason they sounded the way they did, they listened to everything,
Yes.
I mean, like the influences on them are so diverse, and that's what created that sound. And I think a lot of when people try to sound like them, to me, a lot of the time it just doesn't ring true for me a lot. Like it's
a little bit like a parody in some
Yeah,
ways. You
totally.
know,
Yeah.
you're reminding me of what Alan Watts said about Jesus. You know, he was like who is Jesus' savior? It's like not like Jesus wasn't his own savior. You know, it's like the Grateful Dead obviously just didn't only listen to the Grateful Dead.
Right, right. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
You know, yeah, it's there was so many other things. And you know, I think that, you know, in your story about answering that ad, you know, it didn't say we need a guitarist who listens to the Grateful Dead. We need a guitarist who listens to like some old country blues musicians or something like that.
Yeah, it was Dave Rawlings and Larry Campbell, which were
Right.
like two of my biggest influences. And that's another thing that I loved about playing with Brian, you know, like the band at that point, it was his band Blue Light River, and then him and I started a band called American Jubilee with three other friends of ours. And um, you know, everybody in that band, we were just so, maybe to a fault, you know, just
Mm-hmm.
like intent on not having that connection, you know, like, I mean, obviously the connection was there, and we would stretch out songs and all that kind of stuff, but we didn't play Dead tunes, and we didn't want to, we wanted to do our own thing. That was
Right.
the biggest thing about that band.
Indeed. And so you have a podcast called Songs That Saved Me.
I do.
I'm
Which I
curious.
need to revamp. I'd taken a bit of a break from it once we found out we were expecting other priorities came along, but I'm getting ready to launch a bunch of more episodes.
Right. Well, you know, I know a good tech guy, you know,
Yeah.
if you need support. Now, did you ever, I only listened to a few episodes, you know, obviously I listened to Phil's episode and I don't remember which other, but have you ever gotten a chance to tell people which song saved you?
You know, my wife has been pushing for that since the beginning of that. She wants to interview me and do that, and that's one of the things that I'm gonna probably put out before too long. And yeah, I mean, it's funny. Everybody, you know, at some point in the interview, everybody talks about like what a challenge it is to pick three songs, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
narrow it down to three tunes. And I had a very hard time when I've thought about it, trying to narrow it down. So yeah, I mean, uh, that's something that's on the horizon for sure.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't want to step on her toes or anything, but do you think we could get a teaser? You think we could get either like maybe a band or an album or, you know, just a little peek?
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's there's a song of mine certainly that saved me in a big way.
Mm,
That's the last tune on my record. It's called The Thunder, and I wrote it about, um, you know, dealing with the loss of my mom.
mm,
And, you know, I think that got me through. That was a really cathartic thing to do, and very healing. And that's definitely one of them. And then, you know,
Is that the reason that you came up with the idea for the podcast to begin with?
no, I had the idea for a little while before the pandemic, and the pandemic kind of just, you know, forced
Hmm.
my hand a little bit, and we had the time to do it, and people had the time to do the interviews, etc. um but no, like I was saying earlier, you know, from the time I had that guitar in my hand, I experienced the power of music. And
Right.
um kind of the goal for that show or that podcast is to like have musicians and other people. There've been some non-musicians that have been on the show too that have been really great. um, but just people sharing how music has gotten them through really challenging times or hard
Mhm.
times, and in the hopes that, you know, maybe somebody listening is going through something similar. And, you know, having that shared experience, I think, is powerful.
Yeah. It's really interesting to think about like what happened to be on a playlist when you were struggling,
Yeah.
you know, because, you know, with such access to music these days, you know, I can think of like the things that are kind of in heavy rotation, or the things that I explore, listen to a lot. But then, somehow there'll be like some weird, quirky thing that ended up on a playlist that just happened to be there at the right time.
Yeah, and that's one of the cool things about that show is that common theme of like, did you find the song or did the song find you? I
Hmm.
mean, there's a lot of that, and it's it's similar to some of the themes that we're talking about, where it's like it opens you up, or if you're open to that experience at that moment, it's there for you, and
Hmm.
um, I don't know, it's just a really powerful conduit for a lot of those things that you need to get through those tough times.
Right. You mentioned that the podcast ended up on hold because of the baby and the preparing for that, which makes sense. Um, I can hear mine off in the distance. Um, what else are you? What are you doing to prepare? Like, what does that look like? And is music take a role in that at all, or is it just Lamaze classes or breathing classes or whatnot?
Well, I mean that the stuff in some of the birthing classes that we're doing is I mean, it's universal, and it's about being present and being in the moment, and
Hmm.
all that stuff is important to hear no matter where you are or what you're doing, and applying that in every aspect of life is something that we should all strive to do more and more.
Hmm.
um but I mean, as far as the practical stuff, just like a lot of cleaning, a lot of getting rid of stuff, a lot of getting the nursery together. Uh, and as far as things on another level, I just about finished writing a new record that I'm looking to record next month, and try to get it all finished and polished up before the baby comes in the beginning of February. But there's a lot of you know
Hmm.
songs about life, and the last 2 years of my life, my relationship with Megan, and things that I'm feeling right now on the verge of fatherhood. So
Right.
that's been something I'm really excited about.
That's awesome. What are some of the things that you're feeling?
It depends on the day. It depends on the hour, man. It fluctuates from, uh, just pure joy and excitement, and uh, you know, imagination of all the possibilities of things that lie in the
Hmm.
future, and then just like sheer terror, and am I capable of this? All those fears that we have. I think that everybody probably goes through at this point. Just the fear of the unknown, and
Hmm.
don't you don't want to make the same mistakes that your parents made, all that kind of stuff. So it's a roller coaster that
Yeah.
it's funny, like it keeps me up at night, obviously, and there's insomnia that goes along with being pregnant, so we're not getting that much sleep right now, which is a shame and a bit ironic, because I'm sure it's not going to get any better uh, once the baby comes.
No, it's not. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it keeps you up at night. That is, I mean, that's touching. I mean, kind of what I hear is just like all of the care.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's like from the moment, you know, like I remember the moment Megan told me, like she took a test, and she told me, and it was like 10 minutes before I interviewed Luther Dickinson for the podcast, actually. And it's just a moment I'll never forget, obviously. And then almost instantaneously, just a shift in how I feel and priorities. And I'm a bit of a chronic procrastinator, and trying consciously and subconsciously to just like get rid of that, and fix these little flaws and stuff, just like like, see the dishes and I'm like, oh, I'll do those, in a little bit or something. And now I just like try to do them right away. Like little things like that, just trying to like, I don't know,
Yeah.
be a better example and all those kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's huge.
It's
Because
crazy.
soon it's like, because like a couple of well, you're a cook too.
Yeah.
So, but like the couple of dishes compounded with, okay, now there's like bibs and
Oh
there,
my God. I just,
there's trays and,
yeah,
all of
right.
this kind of stuff.
And all the laundry and everything. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you have a minute before he starts eating or she starts eating real
Right.
food.
Right.
Um, but so was Luther a father? And did you talk about it on the podcast?
Yeah. I mean, we talked, I haven't done an interview since we've sort of like told people, right? So the next sort of series of stuff that I put out, I'm actually wanting to talk to. I want that to be a theme,
Hmm.
and have fatherhood kind of be a theme, and have songs that have been important to you on your own journey as a father, or maybe like with your kids, that kind of thing. But no, like it was just sort of like running through my mind
Hmm.
constantly. But yeah, we did talk about you know his kids and when he was a kid and all that stuff, and I had so many things to say that I wasn't saying yet. So
Right.
yeah.
Um, that is cool. I mean, I'm playing through, they kicked me out of the hospital and we're like, go take a walk. It was the calm before the storm.
Yeah.
And it was Marin General. And they were like, go walk by the creek, and like, it was like put my headphones on and like, got my shit together. Because it's like, it's like when you're, I it's kind of, the birth is like not really about me. Like,
Right.
I'm support staff. And
Yeah.
so it's like, I can be emotional, but like I can't go full. Like I can't collapse over it, It's like I gotta be like, gotta hold it together and just sort of like, using music as sort of like inspire me to show up.
Yeah.
It was a powerful, powerful moment.
I bet.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm not going to tell you the songs. You'll have to have me on. um, so, watching you, I got to tell you, like I had never cooked. I have yet to cook with anchovies.
Mm,
And
you're missing out.
well, it never occurred to me,
Have
that
you ever
wasn't,
eaten them like on their own?
no.
Oh.
So I guess I will. But watching you, I mean, I feel like they've been in salads, they've been in Caesar salads. So yeah, I guess I have eaten them.
Yeah.
But watching you sort of dissolve an anchovy in olive oil was like interesting. Actually, wait, I did try it afterwards. I got some anchovies and I dissolved them in olive oil, and it
Yeah.
was delicious.
It's so good.
Will you tell us a little? So I watched a YouTube or an Instagram live or something where you were doing a cooking show.
Was it the cooking? Was I cooking dumplings or was I cooking Italian food? You're talking about the anchovy one?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've done a couple. I'm getting ready to do another one, I think.
So
That's my dream.
tell us about how that got started and how that got inspired.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, I've always like food and music for me are,
Mm-hmm.
on the same level. And it kind of goes back, aside like from just a face value kind of thing, to go back to the thing about this music being a universal human kind of experience. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, food and music to me are just like this, because it's like this tribal thing, sitting around a fire, eating, cooking, playing music, dancing, all that stuff. Everybody has that in their bones. And it's obviously I love to eat and just that like experience and sensation, but there's a spiritual element to cooking and eating for me. It's a big part of who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was a big cook, and that's sort of where my love of it came from, for sure. But during this pandemic, there was just like you know, all this time to do other stuff, and I've I'm a bit of, you know, I like to hustle and just like stay busy. Like I'd go crazy if I wasn't doing anything right now. I'm probably busier during this period than I've been in years. Um, and uh, some friends of mine at a company called 1111 Management were doing this online festival thing. I don't know if that's what you call it, but it's called Live from Out There. And there was this mashup of, you know, food and music and I think comedy maybe, but there was a bunch of stuff. And I'd done some, Nicki Bluhm and I had done they did a John Prine tribute. We did a song for that. I did a song for like a Garcia Hunter thing, but I pitched this idea because one of the things I love to make is pot stickers. I love to make dumplings. And
Okay.
I pitched this thing to them called Dumplings and Dead. And it's basically like a cooking show of me making dumplings, and I make the dumpling dough, and then I like sort of pretend to fall asleep. I go off into this dream state, and I have um, these three like celebrity chef people: Wiley Dufresne, Andrew Zimmern, who hosted Bizarre Foods, that show on the Travel Channel, and then this guy Matty Matheson, who has a show on Vice, and they're all deadheads, and I have like I'm in this dream state, and they all request their favorite Dead tune, and I play it, and then I
Hmm.
finish that, and then it goes to a clip of Phil asking me to make pot stickers. They're his favorite, and then there's a clip of Bob asking me to make vegan pot stickers, and then I like come back and I'm like, that was a weird dream, and then I
Mhm.
finish making the pot stickers. So that like, I mean, that to me, like that's like in my mind like the coolest thing I've ever created. Like I look up to those three chefs like so big, and um, it's just crazy that there was this opportunity to put all of this stuff together.
Yeah.
And um, I don't know, it was a really cool thing to make and put out there. And then the folks from Jam in the Van contacted me the next day and asked me to do like a cooking thing for them. And that's when I made chicken parm. And I tell you, man, it's a lot of work making a cooking show. Like Megan helped me, and we jerry rigged, like I like duct taped my phone to like light fixture in the kitchen hanging over to give us like a bird's eye view. It was just like a ridiculous amount of work, but kind of a dream come true. I don't know.
Right. I like all of the disparate elements, and I like, again, the visionary aspect of this show, that it was just, goofy and weird and kind of
Yeah.
strange, and a vision, a
Yeah,
vision
I
of
mean, it
Bob.
totally just like it just the whole thing like played out in my mind at the when I had the idea of it, and you know, I I I know obviously I know Phil and Bob, and I know a couple of those celebrity chef dudes. I know Wiley and Maddie, but I've never met Andrew Zimmern, and I kind of just like you know, reached out to all of them, and I think I told a couple of them that everybody else had already said yes before they'd said yes, to try and like wrangle everybody. Like,
Oh,
total,
that's what we used to do with our parents.
yeah, right, exactly. Like mom said, it's okay, right?
Yeah.
So it all just kind of aligned and turned into this crazy out there cooking show.
Nice. Maybe Action Bronson for the next one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe. I
Maybe
think Maddie's way cooler.
I,
Do you know
I'm
Maddie
not
Matheson?
I'm not saying anybody's cooler than another. I'm just saying more like sort of music, food, celebrities for one of the episodes. I'm not
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
replace anybody. I
Yeah, I don't
just
know.
like those guys. I don't listen to their music. Like I have no idea what that guy's music sounds like, except it's probably hip hop. But I
Yeah.
sort of really appreciate like the glimpse into the way they live life. I think it's really
Yeah,
interesting.
it's interesting for sure.
And so where are you going to record your new album? And does it have a title yet?
I don't not really. I'm tossing around a few things, but that'll come. Um, I because things are so weird right now. I've I've got a friend who's a great engineer who had a beautiful studio here for a long time, and just this year moved out of it, and he's doing a lot of stuff out of his house. I actually went there to record a couple things for the Neil Casal tribute record that's coming out soon. And he's got a nice little mobile setup, and there's a couple different locations that we could just do it. That would be a cool environment to do it, and he would bring in all the gear. So I don't know. I think that's kind of my plan. I have a couple options, but somewhere in Denver.
Right. And what else is on? What else is on the horizon after that, or aside from that?
I mean, oh, I don't know what this winter is going to look like. I
Right.
feel really lucky. There's been so many opportunities for responsible, social distanced outdoor music in
Mm-hmm.
Colorado, and people have been doing it the right way. And I feel really lucky to have gotten to play a lot of music with a lot of my friends over the summer. But it's 10 degrees and there's like 8 inches of snow on the ground right now here. So
Right.
that's not really going to be the case for a while. So I love, one of the things that's been really cool is I've been teaching a lot of lessons online,
Mm-hmm.
um, which has been so fun and rewarding, and I feel like I've become a better player because of it, and just a lot of positive things have come out of that. So I'm stoked about that. And then I also started this thing with those friends of mine that run 1111 Management, combining the food and music thing again. We did, I don't know, maybe 15 of these events. It's called Dine from Out There, where we had musicians playing at really great restaurants around town in Denver and Boulder with like a tasting menu with wine pairings, and then you get a set of music. And we had, Vince Herman from Salmon. We had some of the guys from the String Dusters and String Cheese, and uh, JoJo from Panic, and I mean all kinds of great musicians playing. A lot of these people have only seen these guys at like Red Rocks or something like that, and now they're enjoying this great meal with like 50 people on a rooftop in Boulder. And it's just been a really cool thing to create. And we're looking at doing some stuff in Mexico City and in Texas, like some warm weather options. So that's something that I'm excited about and been involved in during this for sure.
Right on. Yeah, that sounds super fun.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I do. I miss going out to eat. There's a restaurant in this town where we used to come back before we moved here, and it was the place we went when we had 12 people, when we needed the
Mhm.
back room, and like we just sort of took the place over,
Yeah.
and yet none of that's not happening. And yeah, I just
Yeah.
sort of felt a little twinge in my heart around it. It's every once in a while these little waves of it comes over you.
Yeah. I mean,
And,
I miss it so much, like one of the things that I think a lot of musicians took for granted is, all of our friends, all of our family, everybody's so spread out and traveling so much and all that kind of stuff. And you get to see each other in these, you know, unusual circumstances. And,
mm-hmm,
I miss everybody so much, I feel lucky that I've had, there's some friends here, and I got to do a gig a few weeks ago that Scott Law drove from Portland for, and Nicki Bluhm came from
mm-hmm,
Nashville, and Holly Bowling was in town, and we all like had a little backyard distance hang at my place with everybody, and Paul from Green Sky, which was just like a beautiful reunion. We were all supposed to be in Prague together, but
mm-hmm.
it was almost as magical just getting to have that sort of connection for a minute, even just in the backyard.
Yeah. Yeah, when I was driving cross country, we met in my mom's backyard, and I had like 8 people over, to sit in
Yeah.
lawn chairs 10 feet away from each other, and they were like, "This is the party of the summer."
Yeah, totally. I mean, I've played some like backyard parties, in Denver and around here that have just been magical because
Hmm.
it means so much to everybody. You can feel it.
Yeah. So you're gonna forget about everybody on like February 1st. All those people
Yeah.
you mentioned are like you're only gonna think about them if they order you a pizza.
Yeah. It's funny, man. I have several friends that are due right around the same time, or like Eric Crashed had his boy, a month ago,
Hmm.
and it's fun. There's it's nice being able to text or chat with people going through the similar kind of thing.
Right. Yeah, your friend who just had a baby, send that guy pizza.
I sent him I sent him this sleep training class that we're taking. So that it
Oh, wow.
might be better than pizza if it works.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, our sleep training is loose. Loose at best. We're doing
Yeah.
a lot of the attachment kind of stuff. Um, but it's really interesting. Like, he's secure. It's like I'm like, okay, I'm going to work. Bye. And he's just like, bye. Like
Oh
there's no
man,
like, no, don't go. It's like, which would be nice every once in a while, but
yeah,
it's nice that he's comfortable.
that's cool,
So
man.
so after talking about all of the things that we talked about, we covered a lot of ground. We talked precious little about the topic of the podcast, which is fine. It's great to get to know you and kind of dig into your world. I'm wondering if, as we've been talking, if anything has emerged, any kind of like, psychedelic stories or inspirational moments that, we might want to go back to at all.
Um,
And no's a cool answer too.
yeah. I mean, I've had, you know, I consider myself extremely lucky to have like had the opportunity to explore psychedelics and music in at the on the stage that I was on.
Hmm.
Like it wasn't like I was like I got to play everywhere from tiny bars to like big festivals, and there were times where I was not on psychedelics, and there were times when I was, and I just feel like I had this moment in time that opened me up in a big way, in a lot of ways musically,
Hmm.
and just super grateful for it. And I mean, it's hard to really pick. It's more just like a 2 or 3 year thing than just a single experience or a single moment. Um, and that's part of the reason why I feel you know like I make the point of when it becomes a party or when you overdo it or that
Hmm.
kind of thing, because it definitely did for me. And you know uh it's I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, part of our I wouldn't want you to think that I'm bringing you on here to talk about parties.
No,
You
no,
know what
no,
I
no.
mean? Like,
Yeah,
as
no.
I am, although not that there's anything wrong with that, as Seinfeld would say. Um, but kind of what we're doing here is kind of talking about sort of a DIY spirituality.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I I have had, those moments, like seeing the universe in a much bigger way than I initially saw it, all that kind of stuff. I mean, but I mean, like if you talk about something like DMT, right?
Okay.
Uh, that was something I was curious about, very curious about, and then when I tried it, it was like I mean, it blew my mind, and I didn't, I wanted more answers. I wanted to see more, and like all of those things. And I, there was maybe a 2 month period where I was going back to that more often than I think you probably should with something like that. And almost every time I would go to this same place, this like temple of sorts, and there were these I mean, there are these sort of deity figures, right? That were
Hmm.
only way I've ever sort of thought to describe them is like an organic robot, right? So
Hmm.
some, which maybe makes sense to you, but
I'm one of those too.
yeah, right. But I would go there, and I felt like I was getting something out of it
Hmm.
spiritually, and uh, opening up my consciousness and all of those things that you hear about and that you search for. And then I went back one time, and they were like, "No, dude, you take a break. Don't come back for a while." I got that message from the experience, and that was a very profound moment for me.
Hmm.
Like, don't if you want to grow and learn and expand and search, that's fine and that's good, and we should all do that. But if you're running or escaping and
Hmm.
not being in the moment, in the present, with the people around you, and being good to yourself, then that's not what it's about. And that's been the biggest thing I've learned from the whole thing, and I learned it from that experience
Right.
most.
That's beautiful. That's wonderful. They kicked me out too.
Yeah,
Yeah, the DMT beings said you don't need to come around anymore. Try to get more cardio.
yeah, there you go. That's
And then I went back 15 years later,
yeah.
thinking that I was going to like sneak in through the back door. And they were like, "We thought we told you."
Oh, really? Still 15 years later.
Yeah, 15
Interesting.
years. I was like, "Oh, I thought maybe some stuff had changed." They were like, "Not enough."
Yeah, well, I mean, 15 years is nothing.
50, right in that, when you put it up against what's happening in that realm, yeah, it's absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So very, very cool, man. Thank you for sharing that bit with us there. Um, how do if people want to take like lessons with you, or if they
Yeah.
want to like fly you to like when everything cools down, they want to fly you to a magical destination.
Yeah. Well, so everything I still have a website, there's no tour dates or anything these days, but if you go to rossjamesmusic.com, um, there's a link to the lesson thing. I use this awesome online platform called lessonface.com, which you can take lessons for anything pretty much. Natalie Cressman from Trey's band hit
Mm,
me to it. But that if anybody's interested in that European adventure, international adventure with us, that you can go to innogiven.org, INNOGIVEN, and you can find out more about what that's all about. That's a super cool
hmm.
platform. But I mean, I'm on Instagram. I'm easy to get a hold of on there.
Right on.
Yeah.
Well, and any other last thoughts while we have you? Last thoughts for the people?
I
Last
mean,
thoughts for your baby who will watch this one day?
you know, uh, don't don't run. That's been the biggest thing that I've learned in the last couple of years.
Right.
you
Awesome.
know, yeah. And everybody wear a freaking mask so we can get back to normal.
Don't run and wear a mask. That's that goes with, and just that's beautiful. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
It's
so
really,
much.
really, really good talking to you, man. It's a cool thing you're doing. So
Indeed. Well, I'll see you around the Deadhead Lane campus.
sounds good. Be safe, man.
All right, you too. Be well.
Cheers.
Steve, we clear?